In this lesson, we will learn how to create a bone system in 3ds Max. Bones are used to deform creatures and props for animation. Essentially, we'd use Max's bone tools to create a skeleton to bring our creatures to life. What we'll do in this lesson is rig one of the creature's legs, and then in the next few lessons we'll take a look at some bone properties we have to adjust the form, the shape, and the color of those bones. And we'll also take a look at how they can be modified to create really cool rigs. And we'll learn that as we proceed. But for right now, let's say we go ahead and create a pelvic limb for this horse here, or half of a horse. So to access our bone tools, underneath the Create panel, we'd move down to Systems. It's the last category. From there, here's where we can access our bone tools. Okay, so taking a look at a few of these properties, we can instantly have the system create an IK handle for us. We're not going to go ahead and use this just yet. We're going to learn about IK shortly, but let's go ahead and take a look at the other properties we have. We can adjust the width and height of each bone, as well as tapering. So just to kind of show you this, if we were to go to one of our orthographic views, it's always safest to draw your bones in an orthographic view so you know for sure where they'll end up. It's not so safe drawing them in the perspective view because as you start to draw them, let's go ahead and access the bone tools. So you start to draw these, you don't quite know exactly where they will end up. I'll right click to exit the creation mode. Right click again to exit the bone tool altogether. But you can see here that it's right here against our floor plane, but from this angle it doesn't quite look like that. That's why it's always safest to just draw your bones from an orthographic view. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is remove this system. We can simply select the root here, double click on it to grab the entire hierarchy, and press the delete key. Let's go ahead and focus on our left view. I'll go ahead and right click in this window and use Alt W to fill the view. So going back to the bone tools, let's go ahead and take a look at these first settings, the width, the height, and the taper value. So as we start to create a bone here, just left clicking, we'll right click just to create one. We'll right click again. If we look at this closely, we can get an idea of the width and height, as well as the tapering we see at the very end. So if we wanted to adjust these settings after the bone has been made, simply go in and select it, head over to your Modify panel, and you can get to those same settings. So if I were to quickly move over to the perspective view now, just kind of show you this from different views, we can start to increase the width to bring that out a bit more, and then the height, we could do the same thing. See how that starts to adjust the bone object. When we get to the very end, notice we can adjust the tapering, how thick or how skinny that end will be. We can do the same thing for the nub. With that selected, we could start to adjust things, but you'll see that as we do this, it actually starts to skew the snub in a very weird way. But thankfully, we have a really cool way to fix this. And I'll show you that right now. If we were to head over to animation, we could go ahead and grab our bone tools from here as well. We don't always have to go to the Create panel. But watch this. If we were to go ahead and take this nub and simply delete it, just pressing the delete key. With the bone selected, watch, we can choose Create End, and that's going to generate a new nub for us, and it will fix any of those irregularities in its shape. Alright, so that's really cool. That's essentially what these first set of parameters do. The next set are ways we can add more volume. So what's really cool about bones in Max is that we can use them to create a proxy cage for our characters, essentially. If we have a high-res character that we've rigged and we want to go ahead and hide that character because playback isn't the best, there's also another remedy to that, but we'll take a look at that when it's time. But let's say for the time being, let's say if we have a really high-res character and it's kind of lagging when we animate, what we could do is use fins. Let me go ahead and turn on all of these just to show you how it adds thickness here. We could use these fins to kind of create a visual guide as to the proportions of our character, and then we could simply animate just viewing our bone objects. That way we have an idea, again, of the character's shape, and then once we're finished, we can go in and bring the character back and we're ready to render. So essentially, these help us to just add more size to our skeleton, which works out wonderfully when it's time to animate, because these bones, they're not going to lag. We can animate with a great frame rate using just the skeleton. And the fact that we could go in and customize the bone shape even further makes 3ds Max stand out from a lot of other software out there. So I find that to be a really wonderful tool. So that's essentially what fins do. And that's basically what I wanted to kind of point out to you before we went in and created the pelvic limb for our horse, which we're ready to do. Just wanted you to become familiar with these settings. So what I'll do is go ahead and double click on this root bone object to select both it and the nub, and we can go ahead and delete the two. From there we'll go back to create bones from our bone tool dialog. Let's go ahead and move back to our left side view. We'll go ahead and press the Z key to zoom in. And we'll go ahead and start by creating the femur. You always want to draw your bones with the wireframe visible. That way you have an idea of your topology, which is critical because if we don't place these bones in the right spot, as we start to control them, we'll notice our deformations look weird because our pivots are off. So I'll go ahead and click at the hoof, and then right click to create the nub, and right click again to exit the bone tool. Alright, so you can see here we have our bones created. If we wanted to, we could have gone in and adjusted the width and height of each bone just to make them a little bit larger. But I'll go ahead and show you another way we can do this, and that's using a bit of scripting, really basic scripting, but it'll help us save time. So if we were to go ahead and select our root bone here, double click to grab the entire hierarchy, let's go ahead and right click now on the listener section at the bottom left of Max. We'll right click and choose open listener window. So this is our history here. Now what we could do is go to the text field at the lower half of this listener dialog. Let's go ahead and clear out Welcome to Max, and we'll go ahead and start to type in a few commands to adjust the width and height of each bone. So that's going to be $.width. We're using a $sign. That way we can go ahead and apply this change to whatever we have selected. Essentially doing a wildcard, or just making sure that we can apply this as an array. Alright, so we'll go ahead and have this equal to, let's say, something a bit larger, let's say 5. So what this means is that whatever we have selected, the width channel will be set to 5. When we hit enter, that is the case. We'll see this clearly when we go ahead and adjust the height now. Let's go ahead and do that next. So at this line here, let's go ahead and type in $height is equal to 5. Now take a look at what happens to each bone when we go ahead and run this. We'll simply press enter again, and you can see that now we have adjusted the width and height of each bone. If we were to go ahead and move back to our perspective view, I'll press F3 to go to wireframe mode. You can see that we have adjusted the thickness of each object selected. And here's that issue with the nub again. You can see how it's a bit skewed. No worries, we could just delete it, select the bone before it, and choose Create End to fix that. Really exciting stuff. Alright, so we even learned a little bit of scripting. At this point, what you'd want to do is go ahead and grab the root. You can make sure you're either in view mode or world mode, just so you can comfortably move this over in the x-axis to align this bone within the pelvic leg on the horse's left side, our right. And there we have it. Alright, so that finishes this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some more of our bone editing tools.